And so we come to the final video for the Blockbusters show in 2024, and we're going to be looking at a remake of what I think was the first Christmas-related movie that we talked about on Blockbusters show, that being the 2000 Nickelodeon nostalgia classic, Snow Day.
C-5-O-O, you and me are gonna make it snow. Woo! We're gonna make it fall onto the floor. Woo!
Make it snow, bro. Make it snow, bro.
I'm just getting word. Due to unprecedented snowstorm, all schools will be closed, making today
A snow day?
a snow day.
Here we go! It's a snow day, snow day. This is days yet to
You're just an ugly mug who's in love with a toy bird.
She has a name.
I had no idea that they remade Snow Day, but apparently they did. They did it 2 years ago, came out in 2022. Somebody told me at the beginning of this year when I was looking for movies that were related to movies that I reviewed previously on the show, and this was one of them, and I decided I was going to do a video for this. Besides, we already did Good Burger 2, and that was also a Nickelodeon nostalgia trip that they decided to revisit for the sake of nostalgia. So, yeah, let's talk about their Snow Day remake. Siblings Hal and Natalie discover that anything is possible when a surprise winter whiteout offers them the chance to break routines and take big risks. Hal decides to pursue his crush Claire, while Natalie challenges the town's cranky snowplow man. In other words, it's kinda like the first movie, except not. Like most classic remakes and reboots these days. Oh, and here's a true winner right here. 4.2 out of 10 on IMDb, but 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Now who are you gonna believe? Who am I gonna believe out of that? I don't know. Now, interestingly, I went back and rewatched the original Snow Day in preparation for this, and rewatching it, I stand by what I said in my original review. Some parts of it do not hold up, but it is one of those movies where if you grew up watching it, it is a lot like Good Burger, where if you grew up watching it, you probably really liked it when you were younger. And you watch it now, and yeah, it doesn't hold up as well, but you still have a soft spot for it because it's something you grew up with, and you can kind of look past some of the dumber moments and be like, yeah, turn your brain off, it's just dumb nostalgic fun. That sense of nostalgia doesn't translate well when you try to redo it. It's a lightning in a bottle type of situation. You can't do the exact same thing many years after the fact, nonetheless, and just expect it to have the same kind of results. It's like, it's a thing that works in the moment. Snow Day is a very 2000s movie, with the soundtrack and the few like big names they have are still kind of relevant back in that time, like Chevy Chase and Chris Elliott. But you jump forward to now, it's been 22 years since the original Snow Day came out, and just like how Good Burger 2 came out last year in 2023, this just feels like one of those things where Nickelodeon is desperately trying to cash in on nostalgia, while also trying to appeal to a new generation that probably didn't grow up with the original, and probably aren't going to care about the original. It's nothing for nothing, this one feels like a time capsule for this generation, even more so than the first one did for 2000. This movie feels like it was made for a very specific demographic at a very specific time. Instead of going through the movie point by point, I want to go through each of the subplots one at a time, so we're going to talk about them as we go. The first thing I want to bring up is they don't have any subplot involving a weatherman. Like, Chevy Chase's character in the first one is a put-down weatherman who's always getting beaten out by a more popular, more successful, better-looking guy who's a weatherman who beats him to the punch every time. And Chevy Chase is saddled with doing dumb gimmicks like dressing up and having to get into wacky situations so that he can try to keep up. And then ultimately he proves himself when he reveals that the better weatherman is actually a fraud and he actually doesn't know shit about weather. So there's no subplot about anything like that in this movie. The closest thing you see is that there's a lady reporting on the weather at the beginning of the movie on the TV, and I thought maybe this was going to be their update of that story, but no, there isn't.
I am just getting word that due to road closures, all Syracuse schools will be closed, making today a snow day.
A snow day?
It's a snow day!
Honestly, I'm kind of disappointed that they cut that out because, you know, while the Chevy Chase subplot was definitely wacky, because, you know, you had stuff like, oh, Chevy Chase in a snowman costume getting pushed down a hill on a sled, and of course he goes way too fast, which even back in the first movie, I thought, are they trying to replicate what they did in Christmas Vacation? Because it's Chevy Chase and he's going downhill on a sled. I don't know. But yeah, there's nothing like that. And I'm kind of bummed they didn't try to do something like that, because that sort of added a more adult element to it. That felt like something that would be more for the parents that were watching the movie with their kids. But there's nothing like that in this movie. Another subplot you got going on is you have one kid who is like the youngest of the main family in the movie, and he wants to spend time with the parents who are working from home. And at first the parents that are working from home are like, no, we're too busy, we're swamped with work. Except in the original, it was just the mom that was working from home, because I believe Chevy Chase was the dad, and he was out doing the weather report. But like they decided to like amalgamate it, and there's two parents that have to take care of the kid this time. And they have this running gag where the kid always dresses up like different things. He dresses up like a cowboy, and then like a dinosaur, and he dresses up like Jack Sparrow at one point. But because Jack Sparrow is Disney's copyright, and Nick probably didn't want to pay any money for that, they decided to work around it, and they call him Johnny Deputy.
Johnny Deputy?
Oh, yes.
But the whole subplot basically involves him guilting the parents into spending time with him, because gosh dang it, they spend way too much time focusing on work and not playing with him on a snow day. Because you got both parents, like one of them's doing paperwork and one of them's on a computer, probably getting ready for a Zoom call. Because that's the thing, post-COVID in 2022, it's a lot easier to work from home compared to 2000 when the first one came out. But the kid puts fake handcuffs on them, and they're like, oh, let us out of these. And he's like, no, I'll let you out after you have fun with me. So he makes them make pancakes, and then he runs out with the key into the snow, and then they have a snowball fight. And slowly the parents start to get more and more antiquated, and they're like, you know what? Yeah, let's put the work away. Let's have fun with the kid.
Oh, don't you die on me, soldier!
I'm so cold. So cold.
Oh, you're going down, son!
But unlike the first movie, where that subplot actually kind of felt cute, it felt like the kid genuinely just wanted to have a good time with the parents while they were home. This one, there's that feeling of like, are we really supposed to like this? I mean, the kid, like, there's so much about it that's just so stupid, and I'm going to complain about this more, but this movie really just feels like a Nickelodeon sitcom with a slightly bigger budget. I know I've said this plenty of times, but streaming movies honestly feel like the next step in TV movies or straight-to-video movies. They have that same look of like, they put some money into it, but otherwise it just looks really cheap. And even more so than Good Burger 2, a lot of this movie just looks like a Nickelodeon sitcom with a slightly bigger budget. The only thing that's missing is the laugh track behind it. But, I mean, everything about the subplot just felt so unnecessary, other than the fact that, oh, well, we had a subplot about a kid wanting to spend time with parents while they were working from home in the first one. But just everything about this was just so dumb. Like, the comedy just comes down to, like, the kid saying silly things and making goofy faces, and the parents, they're just handcuffed with what are supposed to be fake toy handcuffs, but, you know, the kid just takes all their electronics and puts them in a toy treasure chest and is like, no, we're going to spend the day together.
All right, fine, but that's it. I need to use my phone.
And the phones. Come on. All of them.
That's all we have. Where was that one? Okay, you have all of our stuff. Now, can you please?
Yeah, insert comment about this generation being spoiled and it's the me generation. I mean, if you want to look deeper into that, go right ahead. But honestly, I think the main takeaway from this subplot is that it sucks. Then you get to sort of the main two plots for the movie. You have the little girl who's hanging out with her friends, and they're trying to take out the snowplow man. And, like, unlike the first movie where I recognized the kid actors, it's like, even as a kid, I was like, hey, that's Josh Peck, and hey, that girl's from Max Keeble's Big Move. Here, I didn't recognize any of these kids. I looked them up on IMDb. Some of them were, like, YouTube people, and other ones were, like, from Broadway, which that's the other thing I gotta throw out. Yeah, this movie's a musical. Even though the original wasn't, I'm curious why they made this one a musical. It really didn't feel like it needed to be one.
Anything you're dreaming while the world is knocking at my door. It's a snow day, just what I've been waiting for.
Guess to try and give this one its own touch and make it stand out from the original, they decided to do that, but otherwise, the songs in it just kind of feel like they were trying to cash in on High School Musical, which I know there was like a Disney show for that on like Disney Plus or Disney Channel or whatever, but I'm just like, 2022, it's a little late to be trying to copy that formula, don't you think?
Here's to dancing until it's done. Better buckle up, everyone. Knowing the best days yet to come.
I've said this before, I'm not the world's biggest fan of musicals, but the ones that I do like, it feels like they guide the plot forward. The songs feel like they're actually carrying the story along as it goes. Here, the songs just kind of feel like they're added, and they just feel incredibly arbitrary. And it made me wonder, like, maybe one of the reasons they did it was because you got a bunch of YouTubers and social media people, which we're going to get to that in a second, but, like, maybe they did that because they thought, the Gen Zers and the Gen Alphas, they love their TikToks and they're lip syncing to crappy pop music, so maybe we can make our own pop music for the soundtrack of this thing, and then maybe that can artificially boost hype for the movie, along with the nostalgia train, and be like, hey, it's a remake of a movie that you millennials and young Gen Zers probably grew up watching.
There is so much cuter green. Green. Cuter. Smile. Smile. Say hi, guy. Say hi, guy.
But essentially, the subplot plays out almost identical to the original movie, except instead of Chris Elliott as the snowplow man, you have him being played by Jerry Traynor, aka the brother from iCarly, and he was Crazy Steve on Drake and Josh.
Nice try, kiddies! You ain't getting no second snow day!
For what it's worth, he was having fun. He was like the one person that was like, all right, he seems to be enjoying this role. He seems like he's cut out for this kind of character. I actually liked when he was on screen. He actually seemed to be doing pretty well with his part, even if some of the material they gave him wasn't that great. Yeah, this subplot basically does a lot of the same points. They do the whole snow fort that has electronics and lights hung up, and the long extension cord that goes all the way out in one of the kids' backyards. They do that. They have it that the snowplow man has a pet bird, except here it's like an android bird. It's like robotic, it's AI, and it even talks to him.
I'm a standard artificial intelligence device that you program to remind you to eat, tell you that you're handsome, you're not a disappointment to your mother.
Okay, selfie time!
There's a part that they sort of changed up from the original. In the first one, I think it was like Josh Peck pretends to get hit by the snowplow, and they put ketchup on him to simulate blood, which distracts Chris Elliott. Here, it's like they have the kid dress up like his grandmother, and there's like a banter back and forth until ultimately Jerry Traynor pulls his wig off, and it's like, you're not an old lady, you're a kid.
Second, Gilly, what year were you born?
Oh, 2008.
Hey! You're a kid!
They do have a part where he kidnaps the kid, and then he tries to kidnap the other two because they do the standoff scene, just like the first movie where, they're facing each other, and it's like, you give me the bird, I'll give you your friend back, that kind of thing.
Give me my bird.
I'll give you your bird if you promise to stop plowing.
Not a chance. Hey, what are you doing? Don't. What? How? Don't you hell? Why would you hurt her?
Interestingly enough, they didn't have a part where a kid was tied to the front of the snowplow like a hood ornament. They probably didn't want to get complaints for child abuse because, after all, Nickelodeon was going to be heading for some pretty bad fucking PR in just a couple of years, let me tell you. The sad thing about this subplot is that it just ends so abruptly. Like, you don't even get the awesome scene where, it's nighttime and all the kids in the neighborhood rally together and they take down the snowplow man together. None of that in this movie. The last time we see the snowplow man, the kids, they cut his brakes, so then they end up having to jump out of the car, and then he ends up crashing into a sinkhole, and he's just kind of stuck there.
Are you all right?
Do I look all right?
I don't appreciate that tone.
I'm sorry, Trudy.
I forgive you. It's been quite a day.
Then that's it. That's the last time we see that character. He's just gone after that. We never see him again. Maybe there was a post-credit thing, but honestly, I didn't care enough to watch after the credits. I was just like, man, one of the funniest parts, one of the coolest parts of the original movie, and they didn't even try to replicate it. It's like the movie just like speeds by on certain plot elements. They skip certain subplots entirely. They put way more focus on other subplots, even more so than the first one, which, yeah, the first one, it jumped around from subplot to subplot. But man, this one, it just felt like they weren't even trying to have a fun movie like the original. Then you get to the subplot that I thought aged the weakest in the original movie, which sort of takes center stage this time. You have it that the main kid, who's the older brother of the main girl from the snowplow man subplot, here he's chasing after a girl who he likes named Claire, but he has a friend named Lane, or Laney, who really likes him, but he's too dumb to see that because he's busy chasing after that girl. And then eventually, midway through the movie, after he confesses his feelings to her, then Laney confesses her feelings to him, and then he realizes that she's the real girl that he should be with. There are a few differences this time. Instead of having her be part of the swim team, you have it that she's part of some school musical that they're putting on, and he takes the job of he's in charge of like the lighting, so he's up in the rafters pointing the spotlight, and then eventually he falls, and his fall is broken by some costumes, and she just kind of takes off with her friends, and then he looks down and he notices her whale necklace is gone. So then he grabs it to her and he's like, I can give this to her.
I think he's having a seizure. Is anyone here a doctor?
We're kids.
I'm fine. I'm fine.
That was done in the original. She lost it in the pool in the original movie, and he finds it because he's also part of the swim team. But here, that's how he finds it. And then he constantly wusses out and is like, oh man, but she has a boyfriend. I don't know if I should give her the thing back because I'm just so gosh dang nervous. I will say this, in this movie's favor, at least they didn't have a weird fucking part where the kid sniffs the necklace. That was the thing that was the weirdest part. It's like, okay, that shit definitely didn't hold up quite so well. So at least this movie did one thing right, and that they didn't have the kid be super fucking creepy with that. But anyway, they go to their local 1950s style fucking Shake Shack place, and they have a big song and dance number there, and you see that her boyfriend is like the head of the football team.
Pull up to her door, she'll be begging for more of me. Of you! You know that it's true!
But he's a douchebag. He doesn't really care about her. He doesn't seem to know anything about her, even though they've been together for quite a while, I guess. And unlike the original movie, she has like this little clique of friends who... Oh my god. Okay, so one of them has a running gag where she's the dumb blonde of the group, and they constantly point out how dumb she is every time.
Okay, well, where's the last place you remember wearing it? Oh, probably around her neck. Missy, I worry about
Okay,
you.
I'm back.
Happened, babe?
We heard every word. Missy, think
why?
before you talk.
Watch your back.
And wash your back, even though it's hard to reach. Missy, I use a loofah on a stick.
This kind of takes the place of, him going on live television during the news broadcast and confessing his feelings for her. Instead, he goes to one of her friends who's live streaming on what we can only assume is TikTok or Instagram or whatever the fuck. And he goes onto her live show, and this is just one of the many examples of, you just know this was written by some out-of-touch old fucks. So you have her constantly saying hashtag this and hashtag that.
I am officially #recommending wearing shorts tomorrow.
Yeah, I know. And letting me speak for a moment would be my official #recommendation.
That is trademarked.
I think my favorite example of how out of touch this movie is, though, there's a part where they're talking about, like, oh, you gotta have confidence. You gotta go over and talk to her. So what does he say? He says, you're saying I need to have swag?
So what you're telling me is that I have to have swag, something I've never possessed my whole life.
Do not know cringy fucking Gen Zer and Gen Alpha terminology, okay? You either say you have the drip or you say you have the Riz. Nobody says you have swag, okay? No one says that anymore. You're fucking 10 years too late, buddy. Otherwise, the subplot basically turns out exactly the same as the original movie, even down to them meeting up at the skating rink, and they're skating together and they both confess their love for each other. But otherwise, it's pretty much the exact same plot as the original movie. The one thing that is different, though, is that he actually gets her favorite animal correct, because there's a part where They do the same thing from the first movie where he makes the replica of the whale in the snow. But unlike the first movie where that was supposed to be a setup for a joke, where she goes, "But my favorite animals are zebras." Instead, here she just absolutely loves it.
Is it a whale?
Yeah, I thought you might be missing this.
There's also a forced bit of comic relief where they're trying to mess up her relationship with her, at the time, boyfriend Chuck, who seems like he's on thin ice as it is. But he tries to win her over by going to get her lunch, and he goes over to like this lunch truck that's parked by like the skating rink area, and well, Lainey switches roles with some guy who's in the truck because she tells him that he has spiders on him.
Oh my God, there's a spider on your shirt!
What? Where? I hate spiders!
It's on your head! Spiders on your apron! Take it off! Take it off!
Did I get it?
No, I crawled up your neck! Run, jerk, run!
And he comically flails around and mugs a lot, much like everybody else in this movie, because this fucking thing is mugging to shit. Every single person in this movie, going back to my comparison to bad Nickelodeon sitcoms, everybody is fucking mugging their ass off in this movie. Yeah, he flails around because he thinks he has spiders on him, so then she takes his uniform and she makes lunch for Chuck and Claire, and since he doesn't seem to know anything about his own girlfriend, he's like, "What do you think girls would like?" And she's like, "Let me get you a burger with extra pickles, because if there's one thing girls love, it's pickles." And then, you know, she eats it and she's like, "Ew, there's pickles on this. You know I hate pickles."
Just have pickles?
Extra pickles.
Ugh. I hate pickles. I've told you this like a million times.
Dirk.
So yeah, there was that. And what was really funny is, like, by the end of that scene, as she's out of the food truck and walking away, they show that there's like people still waiting at the food truck, and I'm like, so did that guy that was floating around come back? Because if not, those people are going to be waiting at that food truck for quite a while.
Okay, so I think step 2 went off without a hitch.
Oh my God.
And one final thing, because it's a Nickelodeon movie, and because it came out in 2022, there's a really forced obligatory reference to JoJo Siwa.
Then you entered that snowman building competition and built one that looked so much like JoJo Siwa, it got featured on the news.
Yeah.
Who I don't really know that much about. I know that she was apparently like some Musical.ly or TikTok kid that got really popular because she made pop music, and then Nickelodeon, I guess, picked her up because they desperately want to stay in the now and stay relevant by picking up internet people. But I know earlier this year she kind of had this, like, she turned like 25 or whatever, and she seems to be going through some like weird early, like, midlife crisis, I guess. And she has this like really terrible trying to be edgy song or whatever. Oh God. Everything about that was just so fucking cringy, I swear. It should go without saying, but I wasn't really a fan of this movie. There was just so much about it. I was curious, I was like, maybe if I go back and rewatch the original movie, maybe it wouldn't hold up as much as I thought, but I was surprised by how much it did. I mean, yeah, there's a bunch of stuff in it that didn't age well, specifically the main romantic plot of the movie. But, you know, even despite its sillier moments, I felt like there's a sense of nostalgia for people who grew up with it. I'm very curious if this movie will have the same effect 20 years from now, because even 2 years after the movie came out, I had no fucking clue that it was being made. I had no idea that there was a fucking Snow Day remake at all, and it came out 2 years ago. So it makes me wonder if maybe someday in the future this movie will have the same effect for Gen Zers and Gen Alphas that grew up with it, but I don't know, man. Even trying to put my biases aside, I don't know if I can see that, because I don't know why this movie was a musical. The music really didn't do anything. The music didn't really stand out. A lot of it's just typical bland modern pop music that doesn't really do anything and isn't all that great. The whole musical aspect felt like a gimmick. It felt like maybe they were doing it because, hey, kids love TikTok and lip syncing to crappy music, so we'll just keep putting in all these like modern references to hashtags and the YOLOs and the swag, which just felt like 10 years out of date even by the movie standards. The acting, even more so than the first one, everyone is mugging to shit. I mean, Jerry Trainer can do that because he usually played characters like that on some of their shows, and he had fun with his role, but everyone, like the main girl in it...
Light operator for the winter dance recital is sick.
With what? Something contagious? I will lick him.
I noticed this a lot with a lot of Nickelodeon sitcoms before I ultimately stopped watching them many, many years ago. I want to say around like middle school I stopped watching Nick, but when I watched their sitcoms and I noticed they were starting to get really, really, really shitty, I noticed that there was this pattern with acting where they'll say things like this and they're really like reserved. And then they'll say this and they'll have their eyes bugging out and their fucking teeth showing like they're fucking hit with Joker Smilex.
She is? Hold on. Hi, Jimsy. Hot goss. Claire Bonner is talking.
Otherwise, the biggest problem is the movie's just not that funny. And it feels like it's trying to market itself to two different demographics, but it doesn't really land on which one it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be for nostalgia. It doesn't know if it wants to be for people who are nostalgic for the original movie. Because I grew up with the original movie, and I'll admit it's not perfect, but I do have nostalgia for it. And I didn't really get anything out of this movie. Like a lot of legacy remakes and sequels, it feels like it's just made to bank on the name and the name alone. Because while they do replicate a bunch of the key elements of the original movie's plot, it lacks the same kind of charm. So it makes me wonder if in like 20 years' time, you're going to see another remake when Nickelodeon gets even more desperate for money. It feels like younger generations, I mean, maybe they would like it, but it feels like it's a kid's movie made for the youngest of kids. There doesn't seem to be that kind of Chevy Chase or Chris Elliott element where it's like, oh yeah, that's somebody that the parents or the adults watching might like because, they know who those people are and they can be really funny. This movie, it feels like it's made for the youngest of kids. So maybe Gen Alpha kids would like it, but I feel like even then, maybe when they grow up, they probably wouldn't like it as much. But anyways, guys, that does it for Blockbuster Show in 2024. So, as for what to expect next year, expect more bad movie reviews and more anime reviews. I'm going to try and do some other stuff every once in a while, maybe do a comic book review or a game review every once in a while. Try to shake things up, but of course, Blockbuster Show at the end of the day will always be about talking about just bad movies or just weird cinematic anomalies that we come across. So yeah, there's going to be plenty of that, as well as some new stuff to look forward to as well. But what a movie to go out on. Snow Day 2022, huh? Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff. And until then, I'm Adam Sykes of the Blockbuster Show, and we will see you guys in the next video.
If you can't hunt with the big dogs, you better sit on the porch with the pop